Sonic Frontiers gameplay is just a continued piece of coverage that we enjoy doing. I will be reacting to the Sonic Frontiers gameplay feedback or Q&A session that Alanah Pearce did. She was actually at an event, got to play the game, and has some very interesting things to say, both good and promising, but also some bad stuff. So this is sort of a reaction piece of content that is a little self-indulgent, primarily because a lot of what she says lines up with our coverage and things that we have said, things that we've observed. So I appreciated hearing from somebody who had their actual hands on a controller and got to play the game. I'm going to bring everybody over from our stream this morning. We did a stream about Ghost of Tsushima 2. The sequel is apparently seemingly being hired for, so if you want to check out that VOD, make sure and check that out. There's also a link in the description to Alanah Pearce's video. Be sure to support that. Go subscribe to her channel, leave her a nice comment. We want to support the people and the videos that we react to, and we hope you guys have enjoyed our attempt at reaction content. We want to make sure and do it in a charitable way, an intellectual way. We reacted to Josh Strife Hayes, Yang Ya, and Asmongold. The Josh Strife Hayes one was really fun because he actually stopped by in chat, so that was pretty cool. And make sure on redirect you guys switch to live chat, and make sure that you switch that like button on. So let me get my headphones on. We're a little rough start on here, and there she is. She's waving. I had to skip ahead just a brief bit because she does have a sponsored segment in the video that we're not obviously going to show because I wasn't sponsored. I wasn't paid money to promote the thing that she's promoting. So if you go support her video and check out the sponsor, that's really helpful to her. So make sure and do that.
Hello everyone, I'm Alanah. Welcome to my channel. I have blood in my hair. It is what it is. Feel the need to address it before I get a million questions. There'll be a link in the description if you want to find out more about that.
So we're not going to talk about that. Again, if you want to go to her channel and listen to her video about why her hair has blood in it, feel free to do that. But we're not talking about that. I am interested in what she has to say about Sonic Frontiers because we have only been observing up to this point. If you want to go back and watch our coverage, we watched the initial Sonic Frontiers gameplay premiere and broke it down. Then we looked at combat, broke that down. Then we looked at a boss fight and broke that down. And we've consistently said a lot of things about this game. And we even recently covered an interview about the Sonic Frontiers open world or open zones. What's that mean? And she touches on that a little bit here, but she probably doesn't have the details about it because when she played it, that interview hadn't happened yet. So she's primarily reacting to the gameplay and to her experience with it when she was at this event. Okay, guys, make sure if you came over from the redirect, it's a new stream, so smash the like button, switch to live chat. Let's get this stream going. Let's have a strong start. Let's see what she has to say.
Otherwise, I got to attend Summer Game Fest Playdays recently, which was sort of like a thing that used to exist at E3 called Judges Week, where basically a whole bunch of media, I think some content creators, were able to play a whole bunch of games that were featured in this instance at Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest showcase. And so while I normally take a bunch of questions about a whole broad array of gaming topics to answer here every month, I decided to specifically do this one about Sonic Frontiers. I took a bunch of questions from you guys on Instagram, and
I had my music playing, and she also has music playing. Sorry, my headphones don't get the greatest piece of the mix because I keep one headphone slightly off. I don't like being in like a cone of sound, so sorry, I turned my music off.
On Twitter about it, and I want to first say that the demo that I played was the single worst demo that I've ever played of any video game for technical reasons.
Now, one of the things you're going to notice in this video is that she specifically states pretty strong negative things about the game, but they're always couched in the technical problems. So again, she is saying this is the worst demo she has ever played ... for technical reasons. So I think she's very fair in this video, and I appreciate you guys know that I love nuance, okay? I love carefully crafted sentences. She's being careful here. She's not saying this game is trash. This game is bad. This game is horrible. She's saying this is one of the worst demos, or this is the worst demo I have ever played for technical reasons. So keep that in mind as we listen to this, okay? Because I think what can happen sometimes is we hear negative feedback on something and we will jump to conclusions. We will think that, oh, the game is trash, the game is bad. And we don't want to reframe what she's saying. I don't want anybody running from here and being like, Alanah Pearce says it's the worst game she's ever played. Like, don't reframe what she says. That's not fair to her. That's not charitable to her. I can't stand when people do that to me. And when I was looking for thumbnails, I wanted to grab a good picture of her to throw on the thumbnail. I was combing through her videos, and there was an older video about like the price of the Xbox, and like she got misquoted in a bunch of articles, and she was like really annoyed. And I know that's extremely annoying as a content creator, especially one of her size. Like, she's pretty well known. She's got a very good sized channel, and that's got to be pretty annoying. So please don't do that. Hear her start this video by very clearly stating it's the worst demo she's ever played for technical reasons.
I'm not really sure how this came together, but at Summer Game Fest, Sonic was the only game that you weren't allowed to record footage of. On the second day, I believe they actually moved a bunch of plants to try to stop people from recording the screens. It was the only game that you weren't allowed to. It also had an NDA, only game that had an NDA, which is a...
Okay. I'm going to back it up. So it's the only game they didn't let people record, and it's the only game that has an NDA. There's going to be a consistent theme in this video with her that there's stuff she can't talk about, and strangely enough, she'll say it herself. That's like the good stuff. So she can't talk about the stuff that she's actually encouraged by because it's under NDA, all right? But also, nobody could record footage. You know, they moved plants, I guess, because people were probably trying to record with their phones or whatever. It's kind of funny. So no recording and an NDA. I start to question why you would even show up, right? I don't even understand why they would show up. Like, this again is cause for concern, because some people might hear this and be like, that's not a big deal. No, I think it is a big deal, because she has now said 3 things that are incredibly important for why I feel like this project is being grossly mismanaged. Number 1, she said it was the worst demo she's ever played for technical reasons. I can almost promise you that developers would never want to take a technically flawed demo to an event. They would be 100% against that, which means somebody somewhere at a leadership level made this decision and likely ignored the pleas and the cries of the devs to be like, please no, this thing is not ready, okay? Let's not take it. So you have a leadership level decision there that is just horrendous. Then, likely, in response to the developer saying the thing's not ready, you come up with the genius idea of saying, well, don't let anybody record footage and make them sign NDAs. So this is extremely concerning, because we're also reading interviews. Like, I'm not trying to like make a mountain out of a molehill here, okay? But I think this start of her video is honestly one of the more important parts of her video, because she's giving you an inside scoop on how this game was handled at an event where people could play it, all right? When I view what she just said in the context, and in light of the fact that there was interviews recently where the community is calling for this game to be delayed, and they're like, no, this thing's ready to go, we're shipping this thing, that, to me, I have severe doubts about that being true. I have doubts about it being ready. I have doubts about it being a shippable game, because you went to a summer event roughly 6 months or less in relation to your launch date. You went there with a broken demo and made people sign NDAs and wouldn't let them record footage. It's extremely concerning about the management of this project and the quality. Now, I'm going to let her say her piece, because she does say there's elements that are encouraging. Let's listen further.
Which is a bummer, because it means I can't talk about the one thing that I actually liked about it the most. It's a real shame. There's one thing about it that I really, really liked, and that thing is specifically NDA'd, which is such a bummer. But yes, technically, as somebody who's been in the games industry for 11 years now, the worst demo I've ever played. It was very strange. I almost felt bad for them. I sit down to play the game, and it is windowed in that you can literally see the border. Like, there is a gray box around with a little X in the corner, and I don't remember what the title was. It didn't say Sonic Frontiers, but there was some sort of, like I said, a border. Very strange. The game was so pixelated that it didn't look anything like the gameplay that I have in the corner right now. Somebody asked me if I saw the rain, and I said I couldn't even tell if there was rain. It was so pixelated, it may as well have always been raining. Had really bad frame rate drops, just terrible compression, and one thing that made it very difficult to preview was that they gave us PlayStation 4 controllers, but all of the prompts were for an Xbox controller, which is confusing even when you're using the right controller if you swap between all the consoles. But when you're using a controller that isn't the same as the prompts on screen, even worse. Yeah, really.
Okay, so it just gets... I'm going to try and get a good freeze frame of her. I hate pausing these poor people that we react to. I hate pausing on like a bad frame of them. I want them to look nice while we're doing this. I don't want them to look like derpy. Like, everyone looks derpy if you pause. Okay, so this is so concerning, okay? Number one, she's already said that it's the worst demo she's ever played and that they were under NDA and they couldn't record anything. Now, building off of that, the gameplay is windowed and pixelated and compressed. She says she can't even tell if it's raining. I'm like, what? And then the controller thing, to me, it's just one more piece of evidence that this was slapped together. Somebody somewhere forced this and said, no, we are going to this event. Have them sign NDAs. Don't let them record footage. I don't care if you don't have the right controllers. We're going to this GD event. Like, it just reeks of mad dad syndrome. Like, some mad dad just forced this on these poor devs. Like, exactly, Abe. Why would you even have a demo? Like, what in the cinnamon toast frick are you doing? Right? Nobody can talk about it. They can't show the footage. What was the point? Because all they're going to do is what she's doing. That's like, everybody coming from the event is going to do what Alanah is doing. Like, I can't talk about anything. There was some good stuff. I'm not allowed to talk about it. I can't show you that good stuff. It was pretty bad. It was pretty glitchy. It was pretty buggy. I don't even know why the frick they were there. Now, she makes mention later that she talked to some people who seemingly had a better experience than her. So we'll let that be a part of the dialogue, that maybe she just had a really unlucky terminal or something. I don't know why that would be the case. Obviously, if you're in the games industry, you would have some semblance of an idea of who she is. You wouldn't like, here, sit down and play on the bad console. And here's a PlayStation controller, and shut up, Alanah, just play. Like, I don't think that's what's happened. I don't think she was given like a bad controller or a bad station. I think they brought a bad demo, and she's going to start getting into details about the gameplay that it's all perfectly in line with what we have said. I want you to hear me say that. She is not going to say anything that is at odds with all of our observations. Okay? So we made all these observations for weeks now, and then someone who played the game, it's going to sound like she was hanging out in our streams, which she wasn't. I'm sure she's incredibly busy and would never watch. She would never come and slum it in my channel. But it's going to sound like she was watching our streams and our content, because she actually played it and she saw and experienced everything that we have seen. Okay? So do me a favor. Smash those like buttons, support this video, support my channel with a subscribe. If you like Alanah, thanks for being here. If you've never watched her content, the link is in the description below. Give her some support and go watch her video. Again, it does have a sponsored segment we're not going to watch, but if you support her video in that sponsored segment, that does help her as a content creator.
Yeah, it really did my head in. So it ran very poorly. It looked terrible. It was awkward to play. And those are all technical issues that don't actually pertain to the game. I think they pertain to the demo itself. The team wasn't ready for it. They ran into hiccups. It's stuff that I have a lot of sympathy for. I'm sure that they, really would have preferred not to have shown it in that condition. Sometimes that just happens and it sucks. And I also don't believe that was consistent for everyone, as is with a lot of tech issues. I think that some of the other people who previewed it did not have the same extremely negative experience that I had. I know some definitely did. I spoke to Ralph or SkillUp about it, and it sounds like he had a very similar experience to me, but definitely some other people did not have that. So I
Okay, so I think that's important. Okay, she is making allowance here that like some people maybe didn't have as negative an experience, but if her and Ralph are saying the same thing, her and SkillUp, when she says Ralph, she says his name close in conjunction with SkillUp. That's who SkillUp is. If you didn't catch that, I know him as Ralph because that's how Creature refers to him, because Creature has worked with him in the past. So if her and SkillUp are saying the exact same thing, that's concerning. That's concerning. And if you're going to come in and insult what she looks like, you can sit in timeout. So she is saying the same thing that SkillUp is saying. So she's making allowances for like maybe people didn't have the exact problems that we had. Now, someone's making a joke in chat. They're not slamming her. Doom is making a joke and saying she just doesn't understand the concept of open zone. That is a reference to when one of the game developers said, we just don't understand the game. We don't understand what we're looking at. So he's making a joke. He's not actually saying that Alanah Pearce doesn't understand the concept of open zone. That's a meme. That's a joke. We're not into insulting. We're not into insulting content creators here, especially when we're reacting to. And I actually like her. I think I've got respect for her. I think she makes good content. She's got a very good channel. You should definitely check it out. So we're not going to take jabs like that. That's a joke. Just so anybody watching the past broadcast or looking at chat understands that Doomslayer is making a joke. Okay?
I feel like I needed to give that context before I talk about the game, just to say this is the environment under which I played this, which is very bad and obviously is going to inform how I feel about the game outside of that. Difficult to look at it for what it is when you're dealing with a lot of tech issues. So, to the questions. First one is, my only question is, does Sonic Frontiers feel empty? I didn't feel like the open world felt empty. There was a lot to do and a lot of different kind of systems for a lot of those things. And I certainly got the impression that there were certain things that I would not yet be able to do until I unlocked a certain ability. You come across these bosses in the open world, which I actually found to be pretty cool and creative and different. There are also, we saw it earlier in this video that's playing, just a bunch of like random floating, there's one there, just a bunch of random floating, like inexplicably just floating wires, things to glide on. And
so she's played it and she can't even really understand why that stuff's there. So they didn't explain it to her if they were there for her to ask questions. So she doesn't even understand why those things are there, which is pretty telling because we don't understand why they're there either. We're like, it doesn't make any sense. It looks like a tech test. And you guys are zeroing in on me calling the place a slum, like slumming it. I was saying like a really big, successful, very busy content creator isn't going to come out and hang out on my small channel. That's what I was meaning. You guys are like, are we slumming it? Is this place a slum? Shut up. You guys are so... Anyways, the fact that this is, again, I don't want to read into it. It'd obviously be more effective to interview her. She did this on her own as a Q&A, and she just kind of said, I would want to press in on that and say, wait. Did they make any effort, or does the game make any efforts to explain why those things are there? Why? Because, like, she doesn't even know why, and she played it. So she's answering the question right now just to frame it. So she starts the video by saying, there's so many technical issues. This is the worst demo I've ever played for technical reasons. Then she gets asked about, did the open world feel empty? Which is something that we were zeroing in on the first time we watched footage, okay? And she's like, it doesn't. There's stuff to do, and there's just random things strewn throughout. And she's like, and she says just right here, inexplicably, there's just this stuff here. You know, listen to the way she frames it. Pretty cool and creative and different. There are also, we saw it earlier in this video that's playing, just a bunch of like random floating, there's one there, just a bunch of random floating, like inexplicably just floating wires, things to glide on. See what I'm saying? So to me, it's like, that would be something that you would explain in the game, or to her to be like, hey, you know, those things, there's a game reason. We were theorizing, and I was theorizing, that this area that we keep seeing is like a central hub that as you play the game, you're like upgrading the area. Like when you get trophies in a game and you go back to like your cabin or whatever, there's like trophies and stuff like hanging on the wall, right? And I thought maybe that's what was happening. Like, as you unlock abilities and new things to do, this stuff starts to get like pulled into this zone to just showcase. And then when you're done, it'll be this like whole evolved area, right? She was there around the people that are there with the demo, and she has no idea why these things are in this area. They're inexplicable, she says. Another pretty big sign and for concern. That's concerning.
And they're kind of everywhere and will lead you in different directions. There are some curious puzzles scattered around, these little hoops that you kind of fly through. So no, I didn't feel that it felt empty. Instead, I would say, I think the biggest issue with Sonic Frontiers in terms of this open world is that it lacks personality. It looks like they were inspired by a bunch of other things, and thus it comes across as very generic. It doesn't have a lot of mystique to it. It really just sort of feels like a weird kind of sandbox tech demo. That would be the thing that I would criticize it for the most heavily, is the open world lacks a distinct, compelling personality.
Now, that's almost word for word everything we said. I don't know when this video was published. I could probably check right now. I could zoom out, but I don't want to. We've been saying this for weeks, right? So it's not like you get in the game and all those problems fade away. She's played the game and she's just like, it just feels generic. It doesn't have identity. It doesn't feel like there's a sense to anything that we're doing. She said an open world tech demo. That's literally what we've been saying. It looks like an asset swap. It looks like a tech demo. I said if this footage would have leaked and we would have been like, oh, it's a tech demo, everyone would have been like, oh my gosh, that shows lots of promise. But when she goes to an event and plays it and comes back and says literally the same things we've been saying, it's like, oh my gosh, all of our fears are being confirmed here. You know, there's still the possibility that they're pulling some 900 IQ play here of a negative narrative emerges about the game. She's not allowed to talk about the good stuff that she saw. Maybe this is all Sonic movie strategy 101. You release something that's rough and looks kind of busted and broken, and then we're going to wow everybody closer to launch or something. If you want more reactions to the Sonic demo, Skillup on his new podcast with other game reviewers had a segment about it. Multiple people on there played it and talked about it. Chris, would you say they were largely in agreement with Alanah? Because she said that her and Skillup were in agreement. Sounds like what 30 said, it's not Sonic-y enough. That's what his son said. Yeah, it's what 30 son said. That's right. Yeah, you get the bar really low and then surprise them with an average game. Right, is that what we're about to get into?
It really is just a sandbox with a bunch of Sonic shit to do in it. I did not find that particular part of it to be compelling, unfortunately. This bit of gameplay right here is one of the boss fights that you come across in the open world. And I actually really did think some of them were cool. There was one that when I got to, I was finding very difficult, and I was trying my best. And the one of the PR people, I guess, was like, "Hey, you aren't high enough level to be able to do this one." But even this one, I found to be interesting. You know, you have to avoid that spinning thing in the middle. Harder than it looks. Took me a while to pick up. Easiest if you press the head. And you do have a bunch of different combat options and different things to juggle. And you kind of just come across these open world bosses pretty organically.
Now, something I think is important to point out here. So that adds ground to what I said a little bit ago when, like, they're right there and they could have explained why those things are there. They could have answered her questions. Because a guy's right there and tells her, oh, you're not high enough level to fight that boss. That's honestly a little bit comforting because we read the one interview and it sounded like they weren't really focused on the game getting more difficult as you played. It kind of sounded like, wait, what? Because they said, you know, in traditional Sonic games, you had to make it more, you know, more challenging as you played to get that longevity out of the play. And that would lead to it just getting harder and harder and harder. And they didn't feel the need to do that with this game. So her saying that means there is a trajectory of power in the game. You do get stronger and level up in order to be able to fight, you know, stronger enemies. So there is that element in the game. That's a little clue in when she says that. And again, if you the biggest concern I have is the way she talks about these open spaces and these organic encounters in the open world. Do you guys remember when we looked at the PC Gamer review and they said that it's hard to find something to like about Sonic Frontiers. I feel like watching this video, we're seeing that in action. She's attempting to be about as nice and as charitable as she can. Like, she's looking for nice things to say. I'm not saying she's being dishonest or anything. I feel like she's trying to be genteel in her criticism. She's not just getting out a baseball bat and bludgeoning the game and calling it garbage. She's attempting to find things to praise, which the PC Gamer article said the same thing. Like, it's hard to find something to like about the game. It's concerning. I think they should delay it at this point. Unless, again, she played a mega old busted build that they're doing some 900 IQ play to trick everybody, so when the game finally launches, it's dramatically better.
And I found those to be enjoyable, both for the variety and kind of the sense of challenge that came with that variety. I didn't know how exactly I was going to approach each boss. They are definitely different. Just a nice spark of curiosity in an otherwise, unfortunately, I think largely uninteresting open world. How's the gameplay of Sonic Frontiers? Well, gameplay tends to mean everything, but if we're specifically speaking about Sonic Go Fast, it was definitely a little bit awkward, but I think that that's because I was in a learning position when starting to play it. You do have a fair amount of different skills in your arsenal and different things that you can do in different ways to approach gameplay. There are buttons and things to collect that will move the game world forward, and these little fires that you're seeing here, you draw these little tracks around. You can use those in combat too, which is actually pretty neat. Like in this particular puzzle, which is just another puzzle in the open world. I think you had to progress through this one, but you can, circle around all three of them, and that will open a gate or spawn something. In this instance, it spawned something. So I would say that I felt like the gameplay had a significant amount of variety, especially compared to your usual Sonic. But I think that the variety very much slowed it down in the open world and made it have a little bit less of a flow than normal. But I was certainly curious about a lot of it. I felt like I had a lot to learn. There were consistent new mechanics that I could see being implemented in more creative ways. And it wasn't just flip on ring. There was definitely a bit more to it that I did find to be interesting.
Now, she's going to get into her... This is her sponsored segment, and that's a good stopping point. Now, a good stopping point to skip past, and to talk. The funny thing is, everything she just said about it breaking flow, right? I'm just kind of like skipping through. You're seeing the sponsored segment. If you want to support her, that's great, but I don't want to let it play because, again, they didn't pay me to do that. They paid her to do that, so go support it if you want to buy the product or check out the product. There you go. In any case, what she says, we looked at an interview, the interview that we looked at about the open world. They said, oh, hey, the guy that works here, it was either IGN, I think it was IGN. I could be wrong, but I think we read IGN's report on the open zone thing. And they said in that post, they said that it lacked flow. That there was all this variety and there was all this stuff to do, but it lacked flow, okay? She's saying the exact same thing. So this is called, like, what's the word for this? Is this corroborative empiricism or collaborative empiricism, where you have lots of different people saying the same thing? Like, if you have everybody try a piece of your pizza that you made and you bring it out, and everybody pulls a slice, and everybody uses the word doughy, it's pretty easy to conclude that the pizza didn't cook long enough. You wouldn't need to, hire a crack squad of scientists and foodologists to be like, well, what's wrong with my pizza? Right? You fed it to a group of people, and that group of people all used the word doughy, okay? Right now, Alanah's saying doughy. Oh, I didn't even mean to do that. That worked. I'm just trying to back it up. I can't believe that worked. I'm a magician. So I'm going to back it up so we can play it from right after the sponsored segment, okay? Because to me, they're getting such consistent feedback. That, again, is why I'm concerned. You go to this thing with the demo. You go to this thing with this demo that's not playable, right? you you go to this thing, it's not playable, you don't have the right controllers, you got interviews where they're like, no, we're shipping it, we're not delaying it, right? And she is using the same phrases, the same words that we used. She's using the same phrases and the same words that IGN used. That, I think, is concerning. Chris says, one interesting thing they all said on the podcast is that they all agreed the best parts of the game are under embargo. So that's crazy. So they're saying the same thing Alanah's saying. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Why would you put something under NDA that is arguably worth looking at, that's worth playing? Like, I don't get that. That's extremely strange that they would do that. She said that right in the outset of the video. She's like, yeah, the technical aspects, it's the worst demo I've ever played because of the technical aspects. But then she goes on to say, the bummer is we couldn't record footage, and it was under NDA. It was the only game that did this. And the best stuff's behind NDA. I don't get it. The whole thing, this is either, I don't want to be dichotomous. I don't want to be like false dichotomy, like false binary. But I feel like they're either pulling a 900 IQ play here, or this thing's been grossly mismanaged, because it's one or the other. There's no other reason for all these things to be happening.
The disjointed nature of the open world, though, meaning that you have to stop and slow down and investigate things all the time, yeah, it just feels very different to your usual Sonic game. You have to slow down in order to look at the open world and to assess what kind of puzzle is this? Where is this going to take me? Should I go in this direction? Am I going to fight this boss? So the pacing of the gameplay is very strange, I think. I think there are facets of it that are interesting, but nothing that I was blown away by. More just things that had me like, oh, I could see that being implemented in a unique way. And it definitely does feel different. I definitely wasn't as hot on it as some of the other people that I know who played it. And again, that could be because my experience technologically was pretty poor. But there are a lot of other creators that I spoke to who seemed to like it a lot more than I did. People saying stuff like, oh yeah, I liked it way more than I expected to. So I could be an outlier there. This question I'm going to rephrase slightly, but basically says, is there anything to worry about for this new Sonic? So despite some of the negative things that I've said, I'm actually going to say no. I don't think that you need to be worried. Again, I don't feel that the open world is empty. I think it's more just uninteresting, boring, bland, lacks personality.
I love I don't think she's not trying to be funny. She's not trying to be funny, but there was comedic brilliance to that. There was unintentional comedic brilliance that she's like, I'm not saying that the open world's empty. And you're like, oh, okay. It's just boring, bland, and uninteresting. It's like it's so unintentionally funny. And I love that. You know why it's funny? Is because you can tell she's not trying to be funny. Like, look at her face. Look at her face. She's like, oh, she feels like she's delivering a terrible piece of news to somebody. If she comes in with this face, you're not going to Disney World. You're not, right? If your mom comes in the room and makes a face that Alanah's making right now, they've had to cancel the plans to Disney World. She's got bad news for you. It's not, if your doctor comes in with this face, make your plans, okay? You got a couple weeks maybe. She said, it's not that it's empty. It's just boring, bland, and uninteresting, you know? I'm not breaking up with you because you're ugly. Oh, whew. Thank God. It's because you're boring, bland, and uninteresting. Oh my! That's worse! Oh, that's such a great face too. Like, she needs that as an emote. Just Alanah bad news emote right there. I've got some bad news, folks. Sonic Frontiers. It's as bad as we thought. It's as bad as we thought, guys. Fresh out of the content of Alanah Pearce. But I just appreciate her candor. And okay, let me engage some of the things that people are talking about, right? Like the most interesting things or the most exciting things, you know, couldn't couldn't save this game or couldn't make it more interesting. Sure. And Zubair's guess, I think, is a pretty good guess. I think the skill trees and the RPG elements, I'm going to put chips on the table and say that's what she can't talk about. She can't talk about that facet of the game because that probably in her mind is laying the train tracks for potential of like, oh, you could level up, get your own build, get your own powers or whatever. So I'm not speaking for her. I'm just guessing like that's a pretty good guess to say that's something they're not allowed to talk about. And it would make sense that you're not allowed to talk about that if it's not finished and they don't want that out there. Sure. Because I can't think, because somebody's like, oh, Sane said in chat, maybe it's all under NDA because they want to do their own showcase. Then just why? Why would you have people play something where you have to know they're going to go tell the public negative things? You have a bad, broken, poorly functioning demo. What do you think they're going to go and tell the public? So why would you do that? That's why I keep saying it's either a 900 IQ play or it's being mismanaged. You have some person in a position of leadership that's just making really bad calls because the devs would be pleading, like, please don't make us take this demo. It's going to get shredded. No one's going to praise this. It's awful. What are you making us do this for? It just adds concern. It adds concern. So I thought that was fun. Let's listen to this again. We got to listen to this again.
I spoke to who seemed to like it a lot more than I did. People saying stuff like, oh yeah, I liked it way more than I expected to. So I could be an outlier there. This question I'm going to rephrase slightly, but basically says, is there anything to worry about for this new Sonic? So despite some of the negative things that I've said, I'm actually going to say no. I don't think that you need to be worried. Again, I don't feel that the open world is empty. I think it's more just uninteresting, boring, bland, lacks personality. But there are other facets of the game that I think make up for this that I'm just unfortunately not allowed to talk about yet, and that I guess they are holding back intentionally for another time.
Okay, so that's actually, hang on. That's actually pretty big, okay? She thinks that the stuff she can't talk about makes up for it. She thinks it makes up for it. This is where I get the most interested. It's like you just laid waste to the game. Well, you laid waste to the open world. Let's be fair. She laid waste to the open world. It's boring, bland, uninteresting, and lacks personality. I left that one out. So if somebody breaks up with you with that line, I am sorry. Let me back it up. Hang on. I want to back it up so we don't there we go. Let's go to the next frame. There we go. She just looks like she feels so bad having to make this video. She said at the beginning she almost felt bad for the people that were there. So this is where I get pretty interested. It's like, wait. So you're telling me the open world is just absolutely boring, bland, uninteresting, and lacks personality, but you think this other stuff makes up for it? Because think about the way she's framing her answer, okay? She says you don't have to be concerned. I don't think you have to be concerned. The open world's bland, it's boring, it's uninteresting. However, I think there's things that make up for it. And I'm like, okay. Like, I've played games before where there are elements that hit pretty low, but there are other elements that make up for it, right? Ori and the Blind Forest, as an example. In the first Ori and the Blind Forest, Ori and the Will of the Wisp is a sequel, but in Ori and the Blind Forest, the combat is very, very basic. You dodge and you slam the button a bunch, okay? Now, I didn't get that game for amazing combat, but one could say that the combat is lacking. It's very unidimensional. It's very simplistic in Ori and the Blind Forest. But Ori and the Blind Forest is a masterpiece. It makes up for it. The moment-to-moment platforming, the Metroidvania elements, the really fast moments, the environments, the graphics, the soundtrack. Ori and the Blind Forest is a tour de force of brilliant, beautiful game design. It's why it got so many nominations. It's why it got scooped up by well, they didn't get scooped up by Microsoft, but they helped publish, I believe, the second game. Right? Everybody was paying attention to that second game because of how good the first one is. So I do think there can be games where you're like, yeah, boy, oh boy, that open world's kind of but there's these other things that really make up for it. And the reason why I'm willing to accept what Alanah is saying is because of the way they described open zone. I don't know if the open world is meant to be the focal point of the game's quality, if that makes sense. The way they've described the open zones or whatever, I think that's why what she's saying, I can kind of take it on faith and be like, okay, there must be something pretty good behind the curtain we haven't seen yet then. And the open world being bland, we may be able to get over that. Maybe.
And those things made me, not at all worried. I wish I could say more. It's such a bummer that they've restricted the more positive information from getting out. I think... No, I can't say it. I can't say anything that I want to say. I'm sorry. Do I think that you need to be massively concerned? Ultimately, no. That is as much as I'm allowed to say, unfortunately. What would be...
Okay, so she's like looking at the camera. Like, come on. There's got to be something. What's going on here? What are they doing? That's like a knowing. She's got like this knowing look on her face. Like, trust me, there's something here. And the guys on the podcast said the same thing. This has got to be one of the most, in all the years I've covered games, like 8 years. This is the most bizarre. This is the most bizarre I've ever covered. It is. It's truly bizarre. You've got people saying they won't let us talk about the good stuff, but they'll let us talk about the bad stuff. It's just absolutely bizarre. I don't know how much more she has to say, because she gets to a point where she's like, it stalls her out. She's like, I can't say anything. Like, I think she gets worried she's going to slip up and say something that she's not supposed to. So I don't know how much more of the video is left, but she definitely is dancing around something significant that she's just afraid to even accidentally make mention of.
No. That is as much as I'm allowed to say, unfortunately. What would be the most significant thing you would change to improve Sonic Frontiers? I mean, while I've said that I don't think the open world feels that empty, it would actually be that I would probably put more in it, or at least more stuff that's connected, so that while there are all these little things to do on the ground, and you do need to explore to find them, and you open more of the map up as you go and find these things, I think it would be nice if there were just some kind of overarching system that let you just bypass all of that if you wanted to. Like, the ability to sort of free run through the map would be really nice, instead of having all of these momentum breaks where you just have to stop all the time. Again, I don't feel like when I played it, it felt super empty, but yeah, the answer is still that I would put more personality into it, maybe more NPCs, things other than just red spiky floaty ball to collect. And there are different things to collect. It's just, make it less generic and give you more pathways. So while...
Okay, so there's two pieces of feedback here that I think they're both concerning, because I don't think either of them can be implemented, right? I'm not faulting her feedback. I'm saying her feedback is telling of the game's quality, is what I'm saying, okay? Again, unless this is just some rough, super duper rough version of the game. I don't think so, because they've sent this footage. They've allowed all these companies to publish all this footage, right? But she says having more flow, right? Having more flow, having more purpose. Because she says it's not just that the world needs more stuff in it. It's not just like it's empty. So just, throw more crap in the world. That'll fix it. You can tell that she's got experience in, reviewing games and building games, because she knows that would be a superficial level of improvement. It'd be like, it really wouldn't do much. It would be superficial. Like, well, just put more stuff in the world. Like, that's not going to fix it. Like, if there were twice as many ramps and rails and towers, it'd be better. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. So the fact that she says that, and then she says, well, if it had... Hang on. She says if it had more flow, if the game had more of a flow and it flowed together. That, to me, is too big of a piece of feedback. It's why I've consistently said my issues with Cyberpunk. It's like, it's so baked into the game, they'd almost have to rebuild the entire dadgum game to get Cyberpunk to where I think it needs to be. Like, my vision of Cyberpunk is so low, you'd have to rebuild it for me to care, right? I know people like that game. I know it fared better and performed better and got better reviews on PC. I still think it's probably one of the most mediocre games I've ever touched, and they'll never fix that unless they completely rebuild the game. So when she says, oh, just add more flow, it's like, oh my gosh, you're talking about rebuilding the entire dadgum game. Her second piece of feedback is no different. It needs more personality. It needs to not feel so bland. It's like, oh my word, you can't. It would be like adding a pinch of pepper to extremely bland, like you got this whole big vat of soup, like you made soup for like a whole group, you know, like an army, and you're like, it's a little bland. No worries. And like you pinch in some pepper. It's like you can't. You'd have to almost remake the entire meal. They'd have to remake this entire game. The art, the aesthetic, the world, the vibe, the graphical decisions, the art direction would all have to be changed. So when she says, oh, you don't need to be concerned, there's really good stuff that's going to make up for it, I'm like, okay, cool. From a gameplay perspective, maybe. But then she turns around and is like, my two biggest concerns, the two biggest things I would change, she says the two biggest things I would change is like play flow and the game being more interesting. I want to rewind and re-listen to this part.
All the open world where you just have to stop all the time. Overarching system that let you just bypass all of that if you wanted to, like the ability to sort of free run through the map would be really nice instead of having all of these momentum breaks where you just have to stop all the time. Again, I don't feel like when I played it felt super empty, but yeah, the answer is still that I would put more personality into it, maybe more NPCs, things other than just red spiky floaty ball to collect. And there are different things to collect. It's just make it less generic and give you more pathways. So while the open world did always have stuff to do very frequently, like back to back, and it was rarely actually empty, more options for traversal, I think, would be the big thing. And more that feels seamless or have personality and not just weird railings, just because I think that would make that experience better. Was the Sonic experience better than...
So... The other thing she said there that, my gosh, there's just so much to be concerned about. So when she talks about momentum breaks, remember when I said that one of the reasons Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild are two of the best open world games ever made is because when you're going to do open world, there needs to be, or I believe that there should be, exploratory purpose behind it being open world. Like, don't just do open world for the sake of doing open world, but like, well, the mountain's a cool set piece in the background, but I can't really do anything with it. It's just there. It's essentially a skybox. It doesn't really, there's no exploratory purpose. So when you look at the open world in Breath of the Wild and the open world in Elden Ring, there's exploratory purpose just everywhere, okay? So the open world feels alive, organic. It feels like there's purpose. There's this exploratory adventure for you to go on. When she mentions the momentum disruption, that's when I get worried, because it's like, well, then you guys did these things for the sake of doing them, not for the sake of it bolstering the gameplay. You made a Sonic game where your design decisions have led to and resulted in momentum disruption, play flow dissonance, like a lack of that play flow. And that's concerning, because then this is the game buffet syndrome, where she says on the outset, it feels like they took inspiration from a bunch of other games, right? Well, that's what game buffet syndrome is. That's what happened to Biomutant. You're borrowing ideas, themes, mechanics, and pieces from all these other games and throwing it into yours. There's no design cohesion. There's no intentionality behind any of it. And that's what this game sounds like. It sounds like they literally just grabbed stuff and just threw it in because it would be quote-unquote cool. It's innovation infatuation. You're just infatuated with the idea of innovating. Like, as long as you're innovating and adding new things and doing new things that quote-unquote's never been done before. Do you remember when we covered the interview about Sonic Frontiers gameplay having open zones? And he explains it in an interview. And he says that, like, oh, well, we had to come up with a new term for this because nobody's ever done this before. Do you remember when I said that, like, that was concerning. It's like, well, what's the design purpose? What's the design philosophy behind doing it? You just did it because nobody's ever done it before? You know? Oh, you think I should go full screen when I'm talking and saying my thoughts? Yeah, maybe we'll do that for reaction content instead of me being down in the corner. What's the deal with this guy? He's going on this hate campaign on the game just to get internet points without realizing that this is more a Mario Odyssey than Zelda Breath of the Wild. While I appreciate you attempting to come in here and do like a total drive-by swipe at my integrity and my aims, I've covered this game significantly in multiple videos, tried to see the positive, tried to point out where I feel like things were improving or look better, but yeah. So you just came in to insult. We have discussions here which requires a certain modicum of intelligence and the ability to have dialogue. I actually welcome people to come in and disagree, but when you just come in and insult, you betray your immaturity, insecurity, and inability to hold a conversation. So that's why you're not allowed to hang out here. So let's get back to the video and see what she has to say.
Than the gameplay shown by IGN. So that original gameplay that we saw from IGN as part of the IGN First was actually sort of accurate to what playing it is like, but that is only a very, very, very small chunk of the open world, where it was clear that it was somebody like kind of learning how to play for the first time or trying to show different things that are very disjointed. And yeah, the open world is disjointed, but the game is better than that. But that's not to say that that video isn't accurate. That video is accurate of certain parts of the game. A very limited part of the game does play just like that. That thing right there, that big.
Okay, before she goes into those details, here's the thing. I actually like that she says this, because we thought similar things when we watched the IGN footage, right? We thought, man, it seems like this person doesn't even know how to play. Because then we watched another video and I said, oh, this looks better. They're moving faster. They're doing the grind rails faster. This looks like better gameplay. I actually said that. I said, it seems like in that first video, they were kind of clumsy, as she says. They were kind of like learning how to play. But then she's also careful to say it is accurate. She also points out that that's a small portion of the open world. So that likely is related to the NDA, the fact that they weren't allowed to record footage. There's significantly more pieces and things that they can't show. So the open world could be significantly bigger, and the gameplay could look significantly better if you have somebody who knows what they're doing on the sticks. Like, you've leveled up a little bit, you've got some abilities, you kind of know how to run, you kind of know how to scale the buildings a little bit more effectively. That, I think, this is one of the better portions of the video where she's like, okay, yeah, that IGN video was rough, but she's not going to act like it's not representative of the product, right? So, again, I think that just speaks well of how she creates content, that, you know, she's not going to just slam the game unnecessarily or slam their video, but she's going to be like, yes and no. A lot of this video is yes and no. A lot of this video is yes and no. She's saying, yes, things are bad, or yes, things are rough, but no, that's not the end of the story, or no, that's not the end of the matter. There might be, you know, good things that'll make up for it, but she's also saying yes and no, that footage is rough because they don't quite know what they're doing, but it also, it's not that it's a horrible representation of the game, it's accurate at the same time.
Pokemon looking thing is also a boss fight that I found really interesting. And that's just chilling in the open world, which is pretty cool. So I guess it's just hard to not compare this open world to something like a Mario Galaxy. Like, just even like a ukulele, just so many things that have worlds that just have so much personality in them. It's just so, it's just so nothing, which is really unfortunate. And maybe it evolves over time and fills out to have more stuff in it that feels more cohesive or unique or distinct. But like, the qualities of this open world are a railing, a platform, some grass, you know, it's just, it's a bummer. Well, Sonic Frontiers.
Okay. So she touches on something there that we've been continuing to say. If you pay close attention to the footage of Sonic Frontiers that's released up to this point, that open world area is different in different pieces of the footage. And the thing that I started to notice was In some of the footage, there's like nothing there at all. And in other parts of the footage, there's entire new structures. There's these big barrel things, these big, almost like little, they like little like, almost like UFOs or spaceships that have landed. Almost like the buildings you can build in No Man's Sky, like those circular buildings. They look a little bit like that. There's new tracks, there's new trails, there's new structures, okay? And she says maybe it'll fill out over time. Again, I don't know why they wouldn't just explain that to the people playing it, because she did have somebody next to her that said, that person's too strong for you to fight. So she did have somebody in proximity that could have answered questions or explained things, and they didn't do that. So if that's true of that open area, I would think you'd come out and say that. I would think you would let us know that, like, yeah, that's going to fill out over time. It feels bland right now, but that's because it's sort of a central hub that you invest in, and it becomes more full and robust over time. My issue is I probably played a total of 10 minutes of Sonic in my life, and that was 30 years ago. I don't know what it is they keep doing wrong. I don't know these games at all. Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion. I don't. I'm not a Sonic guy either. Alanah continues to say some parts of the game. If the whole game is open world, there's only one part of the game. The way that they explained open zones is like they're letting you play between the areas. Like the areas will be very leveled, like level oriented and structured, and you can like run between those areas. So it's open zone, not open world. I don't even know if that's necessarily helping them either, because even as I explain it, it just sounds like it's open world, but it's going to be pretty bland in between the organized, crafted areas or something. I don't know. The whole thing is weird.
Is a sandbox for the sake of sandbox, or did the trailers not do it justice? It is not a sandbox just for the sake of a sandbox. I feel it has more depth than that, especially because there are mechanics driving you forward. Like, you have to get this certain amount of keys to open this thing. You need this amount of this to get this. So even when things feel a little bit disjointed in the open world, you do have objectives that would lead you towards, okay, I need to go do this so I can get the second key so I can open this to make progress. So the open world doesn't feel like sandbox for the sake of a sandbox, in that it does have progress. And as you unlock more abilities, because there's a skill tree effectively, you will get better, you will fight better bosses, and I guess get better rewards. So
okay, so it's almost like she responded directly to what I just said a little bit ago. So she's saying it's not just open world for the sake of being open world. There is a sense of progress. There's a sense of moving forward. There's a sense of getting keys. And I said the one day when we were discussing this game, and someone in chat like outlined what it is you're going to be doing. Like, oh, you're going to go get these keys and you can go to these islands and different things. I was like, oh, that actually sounds really good. That sounds like a sense of progression. That sounds like there's purpose. That sounds like I now understand what it is you want me to be doing in your world, instead of it just looking like an open world tech test. So her saying that, it is one of the more encouraging aspects of the video. It's like, okay, so it doesn't, you played it and you sense purpose and progress in the open world. Okay, that's good. Guys, if you're enjoying the reaction content and the feedback, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to check out Alanah's video. It is linked below. Show her some support and love and thumbs up, and leave nice comments if you go over there. We've got a little bit of the video left to react to, and we still have more content coming up over on Reforge Radio. It'll be about Fall Guys and more Gotham Knights info, as well as I think 2 other stories for today on Reforge Radio.
So it does not feel pointless, and I think maybe the gameplay undersold it there, but again, I was not impressed by it either. I just understand it a little better now. Do you think the Sonic Frontier controls feel good in general, like running around the open areas in combat? Yes, I felt like the controls, despite my circumstances of things being very awkward, the controls were smooth, seamless, enjoyable. I did not take any issue with controlling Sonic himself. There's a nice speed boost if you feel like you're going too slow. It's responsive, it feels intuitive, so the controls themselves I did not take any issue with at all.
We continue to say that the combat and the play flow looked clunky. We continue to say that. We thought it looks bad, it looks clunky, it looks super scripted. So the fact that she played like a bad demo that had technical issues and she can say that it actually felt good with respect to controls is, again, I think, encouraging. It's like, okay, that was one of the other things we said, like, oh, the boss fights, oh, the combat, it looks clunky, it looks bad. She's saying, no, it feels fine. What kind of games does she cover? I want to plan for when I can get out of this slum and into a real chat. Shut up, Zubair. Shut up.
Similar question here, but was Sonic Frontiers even remotely fun to play? Coming from the question about controls, here's a thing I will say, and I feel like it's my biggest takeaway about Sonic Frontiers. Again, there were parts of it that I really enjoyed that we are not currently allowed to talk about, which is a bummer, and I hope the audience will, be stoked when they can finally talk about those. But the base game and all the stuff that all of you have seen, did I find traversing the open world fun? No, I didn't. I found it to be awkward, disjointed, slow. There were things that were interesting and things that were compelling, but the parts that you are seeing, I had no interest in really ever playing again.
Okay. So I appreciate her honesty here, because this harkens back to they didn't do... So she's saying things that sound mutually exclusive. I don't think she's being inconsistent, but it does sound, again, this is where the dissonance of the game, I think, is coming out. So in one response, she says, it's not just open world for the sake of being open world. There is a sense of progress. There is a sense of forward movement and purpose. So she says that, but then she also says that it's not fun playing in the open world. It's not something that she would want to do again. Like she's basically saying it's not fun. So I think both these things can be true. So I think you can attempt to create an open world game that has purpose to the open world progression, a sense of exploration and achievement. I think you can fail to do that in a good way, which is why she can say both things. She can say, it's not just open world for the sake of open world. There is purpose and there is a sense of progress behind it. However, in the very next breath, she's saying, it's not very compelling. It's not very fun. It's not very memorable. They did a poor job at doing this. It would have been like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild deciding we're going to do an open world Zelda game, and they just absolutely muddled it up and it was terrible. Well, you wouldn't say, oh, they just did open world for the sake of open world. You'd be like, no, you did a bad job at doing open world. Does that make sense? Like, I don't think she's contradicting herself here. I think this is, again, telling of a dissonant, confused game that's not delivering something that's landing. If she can say, oh no, there's purpose to the open world, but I didn't have any fun playing in it.
I think I played for about 40 minutes or so, and even that, no, I would not categorize it as fun, unfortunately. It was something I played out of curiosity, but I would say my biggest takeaway was, yes, I was curious about some of the components, but for the most part, directionless and tedious, unfortunately, again, except for the parts we're not allowed to talk about.
Directionless and tedious. So one of the things I talked about when we first watched this gameplay footage is it didn't seem like there was a point to any of it. You just kind of go around and collecting things and like, is there a story? Is there a purpose? What's going on? So when she says like that open world is directionless and tedious. So I do think that could again be because they've not fully connected all the pieces and parts. So she was essentially running around a very basic mid-section comeback open zone area, right? Like, she may be in the least substantive part of the game when she's in those open world areas, and when she does that, she says it's tedious, it's directionless. That could be, again, by design. Maybe it's not meant to be that way. Maybe there's other things again. There's things she can't talk about that is, I think, making it really hard for her to point out positives, and we hope that we get that information soon.
Sorry, I keep saying that, but you'll see, you'll understand. Did playing Sonic Frontiers change your opinion either way from what you saw last week in the gameplay they showed? So yeah, it did. I'm actually more hopeful than I was originally now that I've seen a little bit more of the game. So this is going to sound so mixed because I'm like, I didn't find most of this fun and I didn't want to play it again, but the stuff that I can't talk about did make me more hopeful than that original gameplay reveal did from IGN. And at this point, I feel like that's where I should leave it so I just don't keep talking around the same thing and repeating myself. So those...
Wrong scene, sorry. That doesn't make sense. She just said there's a sense of purpose to the game, but you said she's consistent. No. She said she doesn't feel like it's just open world for the sake of open world. There is a sense of progression as you move through the open world. So she's saying that it's not just open world for the sake of being open world. I think she's consistent. She's saying they weren't effective at it. It's not fun. It feels tedious. It feels directionless. So she's not saying they did a good job. She's saying do you see the difference? When people are like, oh, you just did open world for the sake of open world. She's like, no, I don't think so. There's a sense of progress. There's a sense of purpose behind the open world. Is it good and fun? No. I think both those things can be true. I think she can say it feels like there's purpose behind the open world, and she can also say, I didn't have any fun doing it, right? I could say, yeah, there's definite purpose to this new open world that came out, but I think I had no fun playing it. So I think she can say both. Like, I think that'd be an unfair, like, that'd be kind of like real pedantic to hair split that and be like, she's being inconsistent. I don't think that's good enough to try to get her for being inconsistent. I think she can say both things.
Those are the most common questions that I got right now. It seems to be mostly people asking the same things. But do let me know if you have any more questions below. Obviously, it's a weird one to talk about. We weren't allowed to record gameplay. I'm just showing gameplay from YouTube here. And it's something that I guess I'm very mixed on. Things I liked, things I really disliked, things that I think are obvious room for improvement. And unfortunately, I had a bad demo experience. So that, of course, plays into how I speak about it as well. But I'm trying to be as informative as I possibly can without giving away the things that I'm not allowed to give away. But do let me know if you have any more questions. If I can answer them, I will. That is it for me today, everybody.
Okay, I think it was a good video. Because she didn't have to make it. She could have been like, listen, they didn't let us record anything and I'm under NDA, so I'm not going to talk about it, you know. But I think it was helpful to at least have a video where she's like being very honest about what she found to be disappointing, what she found to be lacking. The fact that she is using almost identical phrases that we have used, that other people have used, that other outlets have used. If I were to diagnose this game, it's they have individual compartmentalized teams. Some of them have done a very good job. So you get like these glimmers of quality, right? You get like these little glimmers of quality and you're like, oh man, that this could be good. But then this other team did this thing that is, you know, bland, or like the art direction in the art team. That's clearly where a lot of people are setting their criticism. They're like, it just feels generic. It doesn't feel like a Sonic game. It looks like a generic prefab tech test where you just dropped Sonic and Sonic pieces and structures into the world, right? And so that team seems to have done a pretty bad job, but the team that worked on maybe like controls and the skill tree did a good job. Well, that's one of the challenges with making a game is you can have a stellar department that builds great combat, but if the rest of the teams working don't pull their weight, it's going to drag the game down. It's like when you have to do a group project in school. All it takes is one or two lazy people and the whole thing falls apart. Because in this instance, the really good team working on combat or controls, they can't pick up the slack of the art direction or the open world team. Like, they can't pick up that slack. They can't carry the game on their shoulders. What's the conclusion for you overall then, since it's all this? I think the game will launch. It will be review scored poorly. It will do poorly. I think its actual sales projections right now are in jeopardy because unless they pull a 900 IQ play like they did with the Sonic movie, and they've been just keeping the goods hidden, and they had people play a real rough version of the game, and they knew the dialogue would be largely negative, and they can only go up from here. Like, unless that's what's going on, I think their sales projections are in jeopardy because nobody's talking about the game in a way, like, nobody's going to watch Alanah Pearce's video and be like, oh, I'm definitely buying that game. She's about as nice and as kind and as charitable as you could be. She's also incredibly honest. And I can't see anybody watching that and being like, I'm sold. I'm buying that game. So their sales projections have got to be pretty bad because, 30 and So Gaming showed it to his son, and his son's like, it doesn't look Sonic-y enough. And lots of people have come in and said they've showed it to their kids, and they're just like, it just doesn't look very good. And then you have people that went and had hands-on with it, and they're all saying very similar things. They're all also saying that there's really good stuff they can't talk about. So it just doesn't make sense to me. It feels mismanaged. Because if it's not a 900 IQ play, then the whole project's been mismanaged. The whole project has been mismanaged because why would you take a rocky, glitchy, unpolished, not ready for public view, not ready for public scrutiny? You don't let people record. You don't let people... You have people under NDA, okay? You have people under NDA. You don't let people record. And what are you gonna do with that? Why on earth? Who made that decision? Because whoever made that decision is the same person that could be making decisions about fundamental direction or production decisions about the game. Like, that's a high up decision. That's not an intern in the marketing department who made a whoops-a-daisy and is like, oh, whoops, I booked us for this summer game fest thing where people could come and play games, right? It's not an accidental thing. It's a high-level decision to take equipment and a demo and a team of people to an event like this. And at a high-level decision, you have somebody who honestly probably hurt this game's potential sales by doing that. If they would have waited and shown a much better showcasing and much better gameplay, then, they would have at least potentially had some good initial sales that would have dropped off as reviews came in. If the good parts were really, really good, people under NDA would say, forget the open world, the rest is so good you will definitely want this game. Right, I do think their demeanor, their passion, their energy would be different, Zubair. They would. Yeah. She was saying that, but she wasn't saying it as strongly as I would hope. She was like, I think it makes up for it. Okay, I don't find that to be that compelling. I'm glad that you think that. I'm glad that there are good pieces and parts that you think might make up for all these problems. But man, I don't find that endorsement very compelling. That like, I'm acknowledging all this stuff's bland and uninteresting, but this stuff over here, it'll make up for it. I'm like, whew, that is not a screaming endorsement. Game is going to be all right. A 52 maybe. I don't know. I think people think that we're being like overly critical, but for me, the issue is it's a mainstay franchise. It's why the Diablo Immortal situation has gotten so much attention, because it's a big, well-known franchise. Like Sonic is a well-known franchise, and I think for people that have followed the game, to have this come out and to look the way that it does, especially when there's fan-made games that seemingly look significantly faster and better and more in the lane of a Sonic game, that doesn't mean you can't do an open-world Sonic game. I don't think they can, I don't think they have to avoid innovation, right? I think they can do what they're doing. It just doesn't look like they're doing it particularly very well. Now this is published all over the internet. Do you think devs will take her opinion personal? I think the best devs don't take things personal. If you're going to make a game, you better be prepared for people's negativity and negative feedback. You better be ready. Right? You better be ready because... And she was actually really nice, so I don't even think they could say, wow, she was really mean. Like, no. No. She was totally fair. Zubair made a great analogy. Sonic Team keeps trying to reinvent the wheel. They've been doing it for years, and most of the games have flopped. The bio of the game on the official website mentions a desert biome to explore that we haven't seen yet. Long since I've been here, months. What's good, Ernie? For a lot of late 20s to 40s gamers, Sonic is the first game they played. Yeah, like it's a big franchise. He's one of the more iconic characters. Next to Mario, Next to Mario, Sonic is one of the more recognizable video game characters. It's like Mario, Pac-Man, and Sonic. Like, they're like the most iconic, most recognizable characters. After that, you can get into all the others, you know, like Master Chief and stuff. But like, as far as a recognizable, iconic character, Sonic is definitely one of them. Could we get 24 more likes on this video? This is probably going to be a little bit of a shorter one, but that's okay. We got a lot more gaming things to discuss. Well, this VOD and this video probably will be a little bit shorter. Good reaction, though. It was really fun, really good conversation, really good turnout. We appreciate you, especially if you're new. Make sure and hit subscribe and the bell button. I am a Safe for Work broadcaster, so we're going to keep on going with the conversation and the discussion, and that's what you can tune in for every day, is essentially a video game podcast. So you can subscribe in confidence. I'll be in your sub feed all week giving you great shows and great conversations and discussions. It's not people's fault your game isn't fun. If the maker doesn't find it fun, you fix it. It's the right mentality. Zelda, Mario, Pac-Man, Sonic. Well, when you say Zelda, the funny thing is that it would be Link. Like, he would be the most recognizable. I mean, I know what you mean, though. Pokemon's bigger than all of them? Well, no, Pokemon is bigger and more popular, but as far as iconic and recognizable, Sonic is in the top 5 without breaking a sweat. He is. Mario is king. Mario is the most iconic video game character, you know, without question, most recognizable. After that, probably Pikachu. Pikachu and Mario are probably tied, and in some cases you might consider Pikachu to be quote-unquote more popular, but as far as being like iconically recognized as a video game character, because Pikachu's recognizable and popular for a lot of different reasons. The card game, the TV show, like there's a lot of reasons for people to know who Pikachu is. But Mario is the most recognizable, most popular, like, I would think, video game character. And then you got Pac-Man, and then you have Sonic. Because there's just so many people. When gaming became a household idea, Mario and Sonic were at the center of that whirlwind. So the idea that one of the big dogs has a new game coming out, like imagine if Mario would have done that. Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, and then Mario Odyssey. Imagine if one of those was just an absolute stinker when you saw the first gameplay footage. You'd be like, what is that? But no, no one would ever do that with Mario, with their first party. Nobody would ever, they would never do that. Anytime you've ever seen footage of a new Mario game, you know it's going to be fantastic. Heads would roll if they made and released a bad Mario game. Heads would absolutely roll. No doubt in my mind. So it's understandable that people are very passionate about this Sonic game just not looking that great. Creature, if you can hear me, we're going to have to hit radio, I think, at 2. Trash Boat with a $2 tip through the super chat. Which character is the face of PlayStation? That's a hard one. I would think it's probably Kratos. I would probably think Kratos just because he's more I think he's more recognizable than like Nathan Drake from Uncharted. I think Aloy is climbing up on that list now. Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank maybe. I don't know. I think Kratos, you see Kratos immediately, you know who he is. That's a tough one because they've got some really, really strong leaders. Like certain people would see Ratchet and know who Ratchet is. Certain people would see Nathan Drake and know who he is. But I'm telling you, everybody knows who Kratos is. Fall Guys filler. We can't really do that. We do like research and type up titles, descriptions, and thumbnails. I do all of that before I start my day. So we can't really do a Fall Guys filler stream. We can go to radio, do an hour to an hour and a half long show. If we're over there by 2, we'll be done by 3:30. We've been ending our days somewhere between 3 and 4 o'clock every day. I think that's fair. That's a pretty long day. That's 6 or 7 hours of live content. That's more than most, you know, especially because we do it in one run. We don't take a break. we've been trying to just make sure whether we're live here or on radio, you're getting a live show from, 9:10 in the morning, 9:15 in the morning, all the way until 3:30, 4 o'clock, somewhere in that ballpark is where we try to land every day. Because then that gives us time, because we need that time. It's incredibly important from 3:30 or 4 to have that time to plan the next day. We're talking about mascots. We're just talking like who's the face of PlayStation. Gran Turismo is the best-selling franchise for Sony, so a car is the face. Crash was the first PlayStation mascot. He was. Then maybe Cloud. You know what it is? Is it's changed over the years for PlayStation. I think right now you would say that it's Kratos. Maybe Ratchet. But I still think people would pick Kratos. And Aloy would probably be like an honorable mention. She's right up there. People see Aloy, they think PlayStation. Yeah, I don't think Lara Croft anymore. I don't think. Because Lara, the most recent game, or the best one, was like a 1 year exclusive on Xbox, or, I don't know. I wouldn't pick Lara Croft. Not anymore. Yeah, for a time, Snake from Metal Gear Solid would have been the face of PlayStation. Yeah. Sony's defined by generations, not characters. Yeah, it's hard, because right now I feel like we're living in the era of Kratos and Aloy. There we go. My man. Okay, so we're leading with that. Okay, so we'll include the Fall Guys thing as like an honorable mention. That's fine. I thought maybe that would have pulled more volume, but I guess we can include it as an honorable mention. I don't know if you saw on radio I said that, and if your research said otherwise, I trust it. Yeah, good, for goodness sake, Spider-Man. How are we forgetting Spidey? Spidey's probably considered one of the faces of PlayStation now. You're just running with what we had. Yeah, no, it's fine. I went in there this morning and I added Fall Guys and thought maybe that would be the stronger lead since it just hit yesterday. Because they did have like the server issues and stuff. And as far as I know, they still have the private games turned off or whatever. But it's fine. We can just run with what we had. Have they turned back on private servers? I'm looking to see. Yeah, I don't think they have. I'm not seeing it. We really want to see that for Friday night. Yeah, no, I'll include it. I thought it was a stronger lead, but potentially a potential stronger lead was the new Fall Guys season. Talk about it, run down the details, and talk about the server issues. I guess Spider-Man's out of the race with movies and games. Yeah, it's hard with Spider-Man because, like, you would say Spider-Man is one of the faces of PlayStation, no doubt. Their Twitter is so charming. When people ask if we will start posting more professionally now that we made the game free, ha ha ha, no. You made it free because no one is buying that terrible game with their own money. I like how the very first post, like, why are you following Fall Guys and immediately jumping on their tweet if their game's so bad? Like, you know what I mean? How pathetic is your existence? We spoke with Housemark about Returnal's BAFTA winning success and how joining Sony has given it a runway to go even wilder. Ooh. Go, Returnal, go. Go, Returnal, go. Still steak with ketchup. We did that. There's a steak command, !steak, and it'll link you to the steak with ketchup video. It'll take you over there. You can watch that as a member. I tell you what we're going to do. Usually we try to have the reaction last for about an hour, and it did, and it was really enjoyable, and we had a good time. But I think these VODs will function significantly better if we don't spend a bunch of time talking about all these things that are not Sonic related and not related to Alanah Pearce and her reaction. So what we're going to do is there is news. We got news about Dragon's Dogma 2. We have news about Batman Gotham Knights V Rising, as well as the new Fall Guys season. We got tons of things to talk about, but it makes more sense to go talk about them on a show called The Rundown, where we do a rundown of gaming news. And it doesn't make sense for us to sit here and just go way off script and be talking about PlayStation characters and this and that and the third. I don't typically mind going off script, but I feel like we've gotten a little bit more regimented, which increases the quality. You get more coverage and you get more stuff instead of us just spending the next hour and a half or 2 hours just talking about whatever we feel like. That's not the best practice on YouTube anyway, because people will be clicking on this video looking for a Sonic Frontiers Alanah Pearce video, and we're talking about PlayStation. So we are trying to be a little bit more practiced as far as having like best practices. You kind of want to be on subject, and we have plenty to talk about in the gaming world over on radio. So I'm going to put a link in chat, and we're going to head over there. I'm going to redirect you, so you can either click the link in chat or just ride the redirect. Again, we've got Dragon's Dogma 2, we've got V Rising news, Gotham Knights, as well as info on the latest Fall Guys season and where and how you can play it, how you can get past some of the problems, as well as some of the server issues that they're having. So I'm going to take you guys over there right now. We'll go enjoy the rundown over on Reforge Radio. Thanks for watching this video, Sonic Frontiers Alanah Pearce. Do me a favor on your way out and smash the like button. We're right at 200 likes. Give me 200 likes and let's head over to radio.